Now we're going to mix it all up, guys. We're going to mix it all up. We're going to vary the point sizes, vary the weights, and now we're going to see a bunch of things. So now we're using bold, all caps, and we're using upper lowercase in the thin typeface of Helvetica Neue. I'm going to just walk you through how other designers are taking on this concept and playing around with it. When I say concept, I mean this technique. There's something really beautiful about numbers because they're even more abstract than letters. And so whenever you have an opportunity, introduce a number or a piece of punctuation. It looks really nice on the screen. It's almost like an illustration. That's how I see it. Okay, vary the spacing. So what happens when we vary the spacing? We create type that has more air. It feels lighter and thinner than it really is. So here I've taken the year which Jan Tschichold lived, 1902 to 1974, and I put a lot of what is that called, tracking in between the letter forms just to open it up, and it creates a kind of almost like a little thin brushstroke pattern that's happening on the screen. So now I have 2 point sizes, two kinds of tracking. One is default and one is like 300% or something like that. And then I can also vary the spacing in terms of the ABA thing, not only in terms of point size from one point size 24 to 48, not only in terms of default tracking to really open tracking, but I can also indent a paragraph. And now you can start to see some visual things happening here. Again, very few tricks being applied. Notice I'm only using one typeface and it still looks pretty good. And here's another thing I want to tell you guys. All of this was designed in Keynote. I know you guys are like skin crawling right now. Like, how is he doing that in Keynote? Yes, I do most of this stuff in Keynote because I need to update it and change it, and I don't want to go from Illustrator to Keynote. So I'm going to go back and forth here. So one where we indent in and one where we pull it out. Similar effect. It allows us to read one block of copy before the others, or it gives interest to one versus the other. And then I can also increase the leading, the space between lines. And here I'm doubling up on the leading, and that way I'm able to sandwich and weave these two bits of text together. This isn't a great solution because typically you need more vertical space for this to work, but I just want to show you the concept so you guys can play around with that, okay? So here's some more examples of how to lay out things while varying the spacing. So here we see the baseline dropping from Typographique. So he's dropping the baseline and he's also setting it apart and then aligning little bits of copy underneath it. It's a beautiful design. He's also breaking it via the slash on the right hand side. This is Matt Benkert again, where he's doing typo and then graphique on the other side and using a strong diagonal grid mark or graphic device to separate the two. Here's another use of varying the spacing where you have very narrow column widths and it forces the typography to break in unusual ways. A little bit harder to read, obviously, and especially because I think this is in another language, right?
Yes, it is.
Looks like it.
60. It looks like it, yeah. So, but I think it's really beautiful. So here's where you kind of take letter forms and you get to appreciate the letter form and how they're drawn almost as if it's a painting because it's been abstracted. This is an interesting poster here that I saw for Nike. It says Witness New York City.
Wow, I thought it was in a different language.
Yeah, so we can take the familiar and make it unfamiliar. We can make the expected unexpected by just breaking it up a little bit. New York City. I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's very cool.
Okay. Here's some other interesting spacing tricks that they're employing here in terms of using dashes and underscore, I believe that's what that's called. Or maybe it's just a pattern that they're introducing into this particular layout. Another nice layout. Notice the repetition of the pink square. One is outline and they're offset. If I'm not mistaken, they're very similar in size and they're just offset, and that adds, it breaks up the repetition part and adds contrast.